Have you ever heard of someone who lived over 2,000 years ago? A teacher, a scholar, who single-handedly brought down one of the most powerful empires in ancient India. And get this, he didn't even take the throne for himself. He gave it to his student. That's the story of Chanakya, a true master strategist whose playbook on power, politics, and even just life is still shockingly relevant today.
But where does something that huge even start? I mean, really, can a single promise, a single vow made in a moment of pure conviction, can that actually be the spark that builds an entire empire? Well, that's exactly the question we're diving into.
So to get our answer, we've got to go way back. We're talking 4th century BCE. And our destination, the incredibly rich, but totally corrupt, court of the Nanda Empire in the kingdom of Magadha.
Okay, so picture this. A brilliant scholar named Chanakya is traveling from the famous University of Taxila to the capital city Pataliputra. Now this guy is a genius, no question about it. But he's not exactly what you'd call physically impressive. The stories describe him as, well, kind of plain. And he's walking right into the court of the reigning king, Dhanananda.
And this is where you really see the clash, right? On one hand, you've got the Nanda court, unbelievably powerful, dripping with wealth. But the king himself, Dhanananda, was famous for being arrogant, greedy, and just obsessed with luxury. And into that scene walks our simple, no-frills scholar. You can just feel the tension.
So the king takes one look at Chanakya's appearance and just openly mocks him, humiliates him in front of the entire court. It's absolutely brutal. But here's the thing. Instead of being crushed by it, something just clicks. A fire ignites inside him. And in that one moment of disrespect, a plan starts to take shape.
And this was the moment everything changed. Chanakya makes this incredibly solemn vow, right there in front of everyone. He does this powerful symbolic thing. He unties his shika, which is this traditional lock of hair scholars wore, and he swears he will not tie it back until the Nanda dynasty is completely destroyed. A personal insult had just turned into a full-blown political mission.
Okay, so making a vow is one thing, but actually taking on an entire empire? How do you even do that? For Chanakya, the first weapon he reached for wasn't a sword. It was a secret. And this is a principle that any great strategist, whether you're in a war room or a boardroom, totally gets.
He lived by this simple but incredibly powerful rule. A secret is broken when it reaches a 6th year. Now think about that. The logic is so precise. A plan between you and one other person, that's just 4 years. It's safe. But the second you bring in a third person, you add their 2 years, and suddenly you're at 6. At that point, you might as well just announce your plan to the world. It's not a secret anymore.
And this slide really lays it out, right? With one trusted advisor, your plan is like a fortress. But bring in just one more person, and you've created a massive vulnerability. The risk is just too high. The plan almost always leaks, your opponent finds out, and the whole thing fails before you even get started. It's why even today, super important projects are always kept on a strict need-to-know basis.
So for Chanakya, secrecy wasn't just about being careful. No, it was an offensive weapon. A plan your enemy can't see coming is a plan they have no way to defend against. It's how a smaller, smarter force can completely outmaneuver a much, much bigger one. But here's the catch. A brilliant plan is pretty useless if you don't have someone to carry it out. Chanakya was the brains of the operation, not the brawn. He was a strategist, not a soldier. He needed a leader. He needed to find a king in the making. And believe it or not, he found him in a pretty unlikely place. He discovered this young guy named Chandragupta Maurya. Chanakya saw something in him, that raw potential, the charisma, the courage, that spark of a real leader. So he took Chandragupta under his wing and became his teacher, his mentor, his prime minister, the whole shebang.
Chanakya's military strategy was, let's be honest, brutally pragmatic. He taught Chandragupta 2 simple but fundamental rules. Rule 1, you only fight head-on when you are absolutely certain you're stronger. Rule 2, in every other situation, when the enemy is stronger, or even just as strong as you make alliances, you negotiate, you wait. It's basically the core of modern competitive strategy, right? Know when to go on the attack and when to build partnerships.
But, and this is so important, they didn't get it right on the first try, not even close. Their initial plan was a direct head-on assault on the capital city, Pataliputra, and it was a complete disaster. They tried to take the heart of the empire without weakening it first, and they just got crushed. But that failure, that became their single most important lesson.
Learning from that massive mistake, they completely flipped their strategy. Instead of attacking the center, they started on the edges. They conquered the outer territories first, one by one, building up their army, gathering more resources, and slowly cutting off the capital from the rest of the empire. They essentially choked the Nanda Empire until, finally, they were ready to march on a much weaker Pataliputra. And just like that, Chanakya's vow was fulfilled and the Mauryan Empire was born.
But Chanakya's story doesn't just end with a military victory, not at all. His real, lasting legacy is his philosophy, a guide to politics, economics, and life that has somehow survived for centuries. He wrote down all his teachings in this incredible work called the Arthashastra, and this wasn't just a book, you guys. It was basically a complete manual for running a kingdom. It covers everything from how to collect taxes and deal with other countries to spycraft and the moral duties of a king. It's really considered one of the world's first ever guides to political science.
But his wisdom wasn't just for kings. He also wrote something called the Chanakya Niti, which is more like a collection of little nuggets of wisdom for everyday life. I love this one. Laziness is the greatest enemy residing in a person's body. So simple, but so true. He totally understood that the biggest battles we fight are often the ones inside our own heads.
And this really gets to a core idea in his whole philosophy. For Chanakya, the principles that make a strong person, discipline, integrity, hard work, are the exact same principles that make a strong nation. The big picture is just a reflection of the small one. So, after all that, what can this ancient story teach us today? Well, it shows us the incredible power of keeping your plans to yourself. It proves that failure isn't the end. It's just data you can use for your next try. It teaches us to be smart about our fights, to know when to act and when to just wait. And maybe the biggest lesson of all is that our greatest enemy is usually right inside of us. It's our own laziness, our own lack of discipline.
It's just amazing how much of this still feels so relevant, isn't it? So, as you go about your own work, your own projects, your own challenges, it's worth asking yourself, which of these 2,300-year-old rules could I actually apply to my life right now?